Welcome, everybody, to Wisdom Cafe Live. And my name is Dr. Bob Choat with my beautiful co host, Dr. Sofie Nubani. So, Dr. Sofie, how's everything on the East Coast of the United States and in the central part of Florida today?
Actually, very good. Our temperatures got a little bit cooler.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to experience a little, this beautiful, fresh, crisp, cooler breeze. So it's a nice little change, definitely. So we're doing great. Very good
Yeah.
on this end. How is it in California?
Here in the Los Angeles area, it's been quite nice. It actually dropped a little bit today, but it wasn't too bad. Not like it was. I think yesterday was in the 80s, and before that, it was in the mid 80s here.
Hmm.
So it's been nice. Today was like in the 70s. So we're doing okay. Even though during this whole shutdown thing, a lot of people are antsy, but we can go outdoors. We can enjoy and go hiking and
Oh,
everything like
good,
that.
good.
Yeah,
At one point, they had them closed, those places, right? And then
correct.
now, okay, good. That's awesome.
Correct. Correct.
At
So
least the outdoors, as long as it's safe. Yeah, that's going to be a little break for people instead of being so congested at home all the time.
yeah, and a lot of people who are at home, they're going on their computers and dealing with a lot of issues there. And I know that like with you and some other people that have had tech issues regarding computers and such,
Hmm.
correct?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I did, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. So and it's really important to have certain experts who understand computers, and especially if people want to get up and if you're running a business, and I know that Zoom is big, and being able to have those kind of things as well. And, and I'm a geek. I love technology and everything like that, and I think it's really awesome. Yeah, you know that, about me
Yes, I
being
know. And I'm excited about
beside.
our guest today too. Like
Yeah.
we're just right on the perfect timing to have that insight for those who might be a little challenged in that area or could get
Yes.
some inspiration about it. So that's pretty cool.
And by the way, people that are watching on YouTube, before we get started here, I want to make sure that you hit the subscribe button and like this interview, and and if you want to find out more, just hit the notification and just enjoy the experience. So
Amen.
yes, speaking about technology, yes, our guest Joe Boy, who's actually out of your part of the world in Orlando, Florida.
Hmm.
Now, his backstory is really, really amazing. When I read some of the stuff about him, he his backstory in terms of him, uh, his challenges he had when he was young, especially regarding mathematics, and then he got a very good teacher, and he was very interested in computers when we speak about technology,
Yeah,
to the
he's really,
yeah,
really good at it.
yeah, to the point where he wanted to learn more besides learning the gaming and maybe even programming, but building and everything like that. He wanted to go on this search of computers and technology and building them up.
Hmm.
And he even started his own little business starting at 12 years old. That's pretty amazing. And then moving forward,
And
especially when,
his son is taking right off his footprints.
yeah.
Tiberius. I mean, he is unbelievable.
Well, we can
Uh,
talk about Tiberius, but I want to talk about Joe Boy. I want to talk about Joe Boy because he was
uh-huh.
able to literally build and get involved in a computer industry, and he's been involved for decades now, and really serving the people of Orlando and even beyond, because we're a connected world and everything like that. And even beyond that, he's got involved in terms of other types of organizations that he helped to be or build up, besides being CEO of his own company and everything there in Orlando. So not only is he an IT expert, an IT professional, but he's also an entrepreneur, so he understands that aspect as well. So and I'm looking forward to learning more about Joe Boy. So let's go ahead and bring him on. There he is.
The Joy Boy in the
Yes, the
house.
Joe Boy. I
Welcome,
mean,
welcome, welcome.
welcome.
How are
And
you, Dr. Bob,
So
Dr.
nice
Sophie?
to
How are
have
you?
you.
we're both happy to be here and with you, and especially in today's world, we want to know more about like your insights in terms of the IT industry.
There's a
And
static in the sound, Dr. Bob.
is there static on my end?
No, not now, but it was just a minute ago.
Okay,
All
okay.
right.
So, but going back to like you've been in the IT industry for decades now. I'm not going to say like 50 years because I don't even think you're even
Oh,
close
Well,
to being
no.
that old.
I am just turning 50 years old.
Ah, got it.
So I would say just under 40 years
Just
I've
under
been doing
40.
IT. Yes.
Ah, got it. Got it. Got it.
Wow. You were such a little kid then.
I developed a passion in sixth grade when I was failing math. And the teacher put me in front of an old TI 994/A computer. It's a really old computer. And this old TI computer would give me a math problem. If I got it wrong, the barrel would shoot at me and I'd push backward. And if I got it right, then I would push back at it. And so it's like a tug of war with math. And I started doing good at math. I said, well, I don't want to play games. I want to learn how to make them. And so she got me some stuff on it, and that was it. I was hooked. I wanted to make games. I wanted to learn code, and it didn't take long where I was getting straight A's, and it just completely turned around. And that was Miss Ritz who did that. And I did go back there
Shout
and say
out to
thank you.
Miss
And
Ritz
she
if she's
cried,
hearing this.
but she was just a wonderful person. And Miss Ritz is an amazing teacher. And I just wanted to make sure she knew she changed people's lives, because that's what it does.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I remember those computers, the TI computers from way back then.
You're giving your age.
No, I even like when I was with the LAPD, I bought a brand new system called a Trash 80, TRS 80.
I'm familiar with them.
Yes, where the first programs that we had were the cassette tapes, but I go actually way back before that. So I took computer programming in my last year in high school, Fortran 4. And so I was programming IBM 360 computers.
Wow.
So that's going back like 50 some odd years ago. And
yes, I got really heavy into it during the Commodore 64 days.
Commodore
so the Commodore
64,
VIC-20, the Commodore 64.
Yeah, 1985. I still remember that. 1985, Commodore 64. Wow.
Yeah. I loved it, and I thought it was amazing. And I remember riding my bicycle with a computer on either side of my bike, and on the front of it was a CRT monitor. And I would ride around the people, and I would try to fix their computers and so forth.
That's pretty cool.
A guy in Orlando, he was a guy who worked with politics, and he gave me a shot when no one else would. And he showed me this network he wanted me to fix. It was some Atari network, and I had no idea what I was doing. I got there and said, "Do you have the book?" And he says, "Sure, but I've had like 5 different companies look at this." I'm like, and realize that when we're that young, no one wants to give you a shot. But at this point, he had everyone try. So he says, "Go ahead, try." And I says, "Well, I'm going to take these books." And I looked at it, and there was not enough information in the book. It says, "I'm going to go to the library, and I'll be back tomorrow." He figured I was gone. I went to the library. I studied. I came back, and within 2 hours, I fixed it. And so I charged him an hour for the day before and 2 hours for them. So I asked for my $15 because I wanted $5 an hour. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and says, "No." And I says, "What?" "But I fixed it." And, I'm a kid. Why won't he pay me? And he wrote a check for $500.
Wow.
And told me never work for $5 an hour again.
Yep.
So he opened my eyes and taught me a little bit about business. And I've been lucky and blessed to be able to have people in my life that's been able to teach me a lot about business. And my goal was to do that for my son, because I really enjoyed, when you enjoy your job, you never really work. Mm-hmm. And so I really had a passion for computers, and it was my passion. It's what I cared about. And I made that my job. And everything changed when I became a father, and that became my best job. My best job was being a dad. And I always wanted to be a dad, and I just, when he was there, it's like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing in the world. And I still had to run my business. And one day he was like, I don't know, 2 years old or whatnot, or maybe 1.5. And he looked at me, and I was on the phone talking to a client. He goes, Daddy. And I'm like, what? I'm on the phone with a client. And I sat there and looked at his face, and I realized I was wrong. I realized I had done wrong. And I get real affected by that song, Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, about the father who never has time for the son. So I knew on that day I had to go get an office and get out of the house. But then I missed him. I didn't get to see him. And I'm like, this isn't working. So when the summer came, I took him with me, and I taught him how to build a computer. And I showed him how to build the parts and all that. He didn't want to do it. And I'm like, this is horrible. He had no interest in doing it. I took him with clients, and he liked the clients, but he didn't like the computer part. He wanted to play games, and he liked video games, but building it from scratch, I mean, he knows how to, but it's not his fun. It wasn't his passion. And one day that all changed.
Okay. So what changed it?
Well, one day I was putting a computer inside a music studio. And I was installing the computer and all that, and he goes and starts playing with their microphones. I'm like, oh, no, don't shut your mics. And you know, a couple months or so before that, he saw The Greatest Showman. And with Hugh Jackman, and he's like, you know, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and he just loved announcing everyone who walked in the room. And he just thought that was fun. And so he gets to see these microphones. He wants to play with them. Like, Tiberius, those are expensive. Don't touch them. Don't touch them. And the person who runs the studio says, oh, why not let him? I'm like, guys, I don't want to pay for them. If he breaks them, I mean, I'm not selling you this computer for $5,000. I'm only selling it for $1,000. So at that point, he says, well, Tiberius, what would you do if you had your own show? And with that, Tiberius started talking, and he wouldn't stop. 6 hours later, we had a show.
Oh, wow.
And I says, okay. He starts and stops everything, so I'll make you a deal. If you do 10 shows, I'll try to get it on the air. He didn't stop. And he interviewed kids, he interviewed adults. And when he interviewed the first adult, that's when I realized he had something. Because the kids wouldn't talk in the San Diego. He interviewed his school principal. And it's like, I would listen to that. That was good. And so I realized we had something. And then 13 shows later, he says, Dad, I'm not on the radio yet. And I realized I hadn't done my part. So I contacted a couple radio stations. So I'll just call some stations. How much does it cost? You know, $1,500 for 30 minutes of airtime. And I'm like, I can't afford to do that. I mean, he wants to do it every week. And so I contacted over 400 stations. And I found one that would do it for $300 a month because he was such a young kid. Oh. And so they said yes. And then I found 2 more. And I ended up finding 8 stations that air Tiberius now. And I went and ended up last year, I bought one of them.
Oh.
Yes,
so
that was awesome.
My whole office has changed. Instead of renting studio time, I built it into my office. And now Tiberius comes to work with me at least 2 days a week, sometimes more. And he records his show. He does interviews. He's been all over the place.
And
it's just a really cool thing.
Yes. I have to say, because I was a guest on Tiberius's show. And I have to tell you, I've been interviewed by many people and shows. And Tiberius had asked some questions that I've never been asked before. And he had such charisma. We just laughed a lot in his show, too. You know, he interviewed Miss Florida. He interviewed many celebrities. And he was on Fox News.
Well, he thought you were amazing.
Oh. No, definitely. I knew this kid had a bright future. I knew Dad has a lot of great influence there, and I'm sure Mom too.
Now I want to get to Joe Boy before we go any further, because I think the development of Tiberius, because I can see that you had so much influence in that. Number one. Number two, you seem to do well in front of the camera and on the mic. I mean, you have an amazing personality as well. I seen your son, but I think some of you kind of rubbed off on him in a sense. and
The training.
your excitement. No, so it's not even the training, it's the excitement, it's a passion that you exude in terms of what you do. So he developed his own passion with that.
Correct. I mean, I wanted to be computers. It's not his passion, but at least I found out what it was early. And he's learning to throw himself into his passion. And I think, and part of his show, as you know, Sofie, is he talks about what is your passion, what do you do for a living, and how does it help the world? And then what advice would you give my listeners if they want to grow up and do what you do for a living? And that is so unique. That is so unique. And that's what he came up with. He came up with, he wanted to talk to people. He wants to meet everyone from every job in the world. And that's a really unique thing. And my goal is I want to tell parents, bring your kid to work, not just one day out of the year. Bring him to work as many days as you can. If your boss has a hard time with him, explain you want to spend more time with your kid, but you want to teach your kid to have good ethics like their boss taught you. No boss is going to say no to that. You're going to say, hey, listen, boss, I want to bring my kid to work more often, and I want him to learn, and I want him to learn from the best. And the best way for him to learn is to learn from someone like you. He'll work for free. He'll do stuff, and you don't worry about it. He'll learn. And I guarantee you, take your kid to work. You'll get to know your kid. You'll get to spend more time with your kid. And more importantly, you'll teach them about life that they'll never get in school.
Now, has he interviewed you yet?
Me?
Yeah.
Why would he interview me?
I think that would be
It's coming. Don't worry.
I think that would be an amazing interview. I'm serious about that. I'm serious.
It actually would be.
It would be.
So Tiberius, we know you're hearing this replay, so Dad should be one on your show.
Dad should be interviewed. Yes, Dad should be interviewed.
Well, actually.
Hello.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Hi.
Tiberius.
Hello.
Oh, good. You see, this is a good surprise. I've been trying to get you on this behind the screen on our show so badly, but look, this was a good surprise. Oh my goodness.
Yep. The first show that I've ever been on.
Oh, Tiberius.
You're so adorable. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Look at that.
I
Wow.
know.
See, I love kids. I mean, I just.
This is a young man. Like, I don't know how to go by because he's a kid with such brains, such he's so sharp and he gets on, like he's emotionally intelligent. Like he'll know how to gauge you, what to say, and like he thinks while you're doing stuff. He's reading your body language. He's responding. I was so amazed and impressed by his show and by a lot because I watched a lot of his shows.
Thank you.
Yes, Tiberius, you are amazing. I have your signed autograph and your stuff right upstairs in my office, and I love it.
Now
I'm for that.
Now I'm gonna ask Tiberius a question. How much has your dad influenced you?
Oh, wow. I mean, we've been doing it for 2 years. He's influenced me throughout all of the show. He's like encouraged me to like helping me with the scripts that I have to do. And he's making me do 2 of them. So it's actually pretty fun because, you get to like play the games so that you can actually review them and also read the books because I need to be reading more.
Ah, yes. That's very, very important. And I'm glad that you said that about reading books. So I take it that you're a reader, correct?
Yes, kind of.
Kind of. Okay. You'll start reading more like me. I have almost 12,000 books in my library, so I read a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm such a reader, and I'm a heavy-duty geek and everything like that. Yeah, so I'm just probably the number one geek you ever meet in your life.
Ooh.
Me.
Ooh.
So you can pick his brain in many areas because let me tell you, he knows a lot of very diversified information and
it's
knowledge.
like my brain is just like separated into different subjects.
Yes.
Ah, yes.
Well,
so
one of the benefits of the show was that Tiberius got to develop his skills in reading and writing because he didn't like to write before. So he's having to write the scripts, and I help him with some of the scripts, but the other parts he has to write. And so he has to read a book every week and review that book. And then he has to write a video game. So he plays a video game every week. He gets a new video game every week, and then he gets to review it. Now, he wants to do restaurants and movies because I got to think he wants me to buy him restaurants and movies. And no. But he also does Heart of a Lion. Why don't you tell me what Heart of a Lion is?
Well, it stands for leadership, which is the L for lion. And then there's integrity and obedience. That's the I and the O. And then there's nobility. And they all add up to lion strong, which we all have to use that in our school to normally get good grades and normally be a good kid in school.
Be a good kid in school.
So those elements has been his passion, teaching to be lion strong and to help others and to learn from people's jobs and find out what jobs are good and what jobs are interesting, and then ask his guests, which part of lion do you use? And which of those virtues do you, use in your daily life? And that's an important message. Not too many people are teaching to be kind. Not many people teaching to be good and to do things like that. And that's something that he has embraced and attached to his show. And of course, I can't help but applaud it and to try as best as I can to keep it going. There's a lot involved in doing a show and raising sponsors and trying to get them to donate and so forth. There's a lot involved, to a lot of moving parts. And people say, well, why would you do it? Why would you change your whole company? Why would you upheal everything? I says, I still run the computer company, but this does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's worth it because he's learning to run a business. He goes and meets a sponsor. He celebrates them with chocolate milk or whatnot when they say yes. If they say no, he goes home and cries. He doesn't cry in front of them. The whole point is he's learning the yes and no's about this is how business is done. This is how you talk to people and you solve their problems. You don't sell them. You provide them a solution to their problem.
Correct.
And then everybody wins. And that's what he needed to learn. And I'm hoping one day when he is older, he can look back and do that for his kids, that he can teach them to take care of themselves rather than waiting for someone else to take care of them.
And this is what our young entrepreneurs are so lacking is the skills, the right leadership skills that are not taught in school. And you had such a beautiful vision for your child because this is exactly what's missing. They go into life with all these degrees and they end up with, they're bankrupt. They're in the crisis of finances, like it's terrible because they've never learned how to really manage money. They don't understand that area in their life because they just go to school. They're book smart, but they're not. Yeah.
We're also taught that we're owed things. I think kids are being taught they're owed something. And I've told Tiberius he has to earn everything he has. This is a child who is 9 years old, has over $1,000 in the bank, and he earned every dime of it himself.
Yep.
No one handed him the money. When I play chess with him, I play to win because no one's going to hand him a win. He has to earn it. And I think that's something that we're lacking. We do contests and everyone gets a trophy. We do things that there's no loser anymore because losing is so bad. Losing teaches you what to strive for.
Correct.
Failure teaches you how to get better. And if I didn't fail in my business and stuff I was doing, I would never be where I am now. And so he has to get the no's. He has to get, and people are like, well, why don't you shield him from those no's? He says, you know what? I shield him from things that he doesn't know about, super important guests. It's really hard to get. And if they say no, he doesn't never know about it. But he needs to get some level of rejection so he knows what it feels like and can move on from it and understand this is what happens in real life. Not everyone gets the gold star. Not everybody gets the job.
Yeah, I think children are naturally able to do that because that's how they learn early on. When you look at kids in kindergarten and such like that, it's only later on they're being taught that failing is bad. So you're not allowed to fail, which is stupid.
That's why they do the
Correct.
tests in the school, and that's the way they grade them.
Correct.
And that's
based on
why
that.
you have to earn the grades, because you have to study well. And also, life isn't really fair, so it doesn't really matter if you win or lose.
That's true.
Well,
It just teaches you. And life is technically a game of chess.
Ooh, I like
And
it.
it keeps on going forever.
Yeah.
well, one
what you-
thing.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say the aspect of a game. I remember when I went into the Marine Corps, when I first went to boot camp, and that became a game. So like playing a computer game, I wanted to get through each challenge like a game to
Yes.
next level, to next level, to next level. Then when I went to advanced infantry training, it was the same way. Then when I was indoctrinated into Force Recon, so Force Recon is like Navy SEALs, and going through those challenges where a lot of people were dropping out, I looked at it as a game. So I love that you brought in the game of chess and a game of life and everything like that. Perfect.
Well, I want him to learn that failure is okay. When he does his math homework, I check it, and he hates that I check it. He goes, "Don't check it, Daddy." I goes, "No, I want to check it. You got two wrong. It's this one and this one. You find out the answer." I won't give him the answer. I'll just tell him he has two wrong. He has to redo the homework to find out which ones are wrong, because he can get them wrong and turn it in, or he can take advantage of the fact that someone was willing to help him, but he still has to find out the answer himself.
Then I need to show them how to use this. My
Well,
mom taught me
Tiberius's
how
favorite subject is math.
Good.
True.
Do you know what this is?
No, not at all.
It's
What
an
is
abacus.
it, Daddy?
It's an abacus.
An
Oh.
abacus used in Japan, because I'm half Japanese. My mom taught me how to use
It's
this.
the first calculator.
Oh.
Yep.
I'm
In
half
fact-
Indian.
You see, he's already mirror and matching you, because you said you're half Japanese.
There
He's
you go.
already spot on. He's like, I'm half Indian. We
I
got
don't know what to
something
do
in
with it
common.
sometimes.
This kid is so smart.
But the thing is, Joe Boy, I can see where he gets a lot of that from. I'm serious. Yeah.
It is not from him, I promise.
Always
And
a
I don't
comedian.
listen. And on that note, we don't see
That
his
note.
face anymore. Come back, Tiberius.
Tiberius. What an adorable kid, and very intelligent too.
Yes, he truly is. You know, Dr. Bob, you were in California when we did the Chocolate Museum for the Laughter Mindset Experience.
Mhm.
And Tiberius was, remember when I told you about the itinerary so that you had that? So yeah, he was a surprise guest for all the attendees, and he did amazing. He stood out there in the mic, and everybody sitting, and he was the youngest and so confident. I mean, he just really is like a chameleon. He can fit in just wherever he needs to adjust. He fits in. So amazing.
So how
Well,
did
he
you
loves
feel that-
telling jokes.
Yep.
And the other day, he came up with an interesting one. He came up with a word problem, and he presented it to his instructor at school. And he says, because of COVID-19, we all have to be 6 feet apart. So if there are one teacher and one teacher's assistant and 18 children, and they all have to wait in the same line together, how long is the line? And the guy turns, okay, and he goes 120 feet. He goes, well, first you have to count the people. And he starts going, there's 2 people here and there's 18 people there. That's 20 people. Then you times it by 6. And he goes, yes, 120 feet. And he goes, but there's a problem. A line is consisting of 2 points. So one person doesn't stand 6 feet from himself. So 2 people are 6 feet, 3 people are 18, and so forth. So you have to subtract 6 feet from the total, making the total 114 feet. And with that, everyone went nuts because people always look for, they think they got the quick answer to stand the other. And Tiberius has this unique way of really tearing apart a problem and analyzing the math of it. And I like to think he got it from me. I mean, I love giving him trick questions. The other day I asked him if you have 120 musicians and they played Beethoven's Fifth, and it takes 40 minutes to play. Using variables T for time and M for musicians, how long would it take if there were only 60 musicians? And the answer is the same amount, because Beethoven's Fifth is only 40 minutes long. And most people double the time. And he knew it. And that's what's cool, is he's learning those reasoning skills. And I mean, he's learning a lot of cool things. And I think I'm getting a blast being a dad. It's my best job. And I look at other people and they don't get to spend time with their kids. And they say, oh, I wish I had more time. I'm like, then go. Bring them to work, because you have to work. You have to make a living.
Yep.
So bring them to work and make them a part of it. And just find a way to do that, because taking away from work and doing it at home for that 5-10 minutes before they go to bed, that's not enough. And so they're going to learn a lot more if they're with you learning than if they're watching you wind down from a long day.
So let me ask you a question, because
Yes, sir.
one of the things in our educational system, because they teach you stuff coming out of a book, and including mathematics, including a lot of other areas. It seems to me, based on what you've done with Tiberius, is that you had him engaged in conceptual knowledge and experiential knowledge as well. Being out there and then looking at the real world, then coming back and then being able to look at problems coming out of a textbook, and being able to look at math in terms of a different way.
Yes, and sometimes most of the time it's a good thing. Sometimes it's not good, because sometimes the school books are wrong. Sometimes the school book.
Sometimes the school books are wrong.
They had one where it was a map, and they told them to prove and show which ones were lines and which were line segments. Well, one of them was a ray, but they didn't ask for a ray. And he says, no, that's not a line or a line segment. It's a ray. And he was right. And so what do you do when the book's wrong? And so, you know, everyone, especially in kindergarten and all that, the teachers just want them to do whatever the book said. And I'm like, well, no, square and rectangle is not a four-sided object, because there's rhombus and trapezoid. And so he wanted to do tarragon, and they didn't want to allow it. And I'm like, but he's right. And he's always been really good at math. Right now, he's in 4th grade, and he's lucky. He goes to a wonderful school. He goes to the Christ School. They're fantastic. And they've allowed him to go to 5th grade for mathematics. So they allow him to do more advanced math. And every time he goes to math class, they put him in another class. He does enrichments, and they really take care to help him grow with the skills that he has. And they've been accommodating for the different things when he has to go and do an interview or do different things. So they're a fantastic school. And I can't say enough about it. And what I tell people is, no matter what, find a way to spend time with your kids. If you got to go home early, fine, go home early. But most people can't afford to go home early.
Yeah.
So I did something different. I brought him with me.
Yeah.
And I think that it worked. I get a lot of time with my son. I love teaching him. I have fun with him. And, you know, people keep telling me I need to write a book about it or something like that. I don't know.
Yes,
You
we were
should.
saying that.
People need to bring their kid to work, not just one day, but they should bring their kid as many days as they can.
Yeah, you definitely have a book or two in you regarding what you've been through and your experiences, and even early on with your experience. So, in fact, I would start the book from your childhood and what you had to go through and what you learned from that and experiences you got out of that, and applying it to the development and helping your son Tiberius move to where he's at. And parents, I think, all over can learn from their own experiences and their own childhood, that maybe they rejected that, but it seems that you didn't reject it. You actually grew from it, even with your difficulties early on in math, but you were able to move forward.
Correct. And I think math is a subject everyone should do. Everyone should be reading 30 minutes a day. Tiberius, you asked me if he's a reader. He doesn't like to read, but this gives him a reason to read.
He doesn't like to read yet.
And the thing is the school wanted him to read 20 minutes a day, and he wouldn't do it. I'm like, you still got to do it. So the radio show put him in a mindset, well, if you want to do the show, you're going to have to read. And that was enough to motivate him to go ahead and read. And he likes the books. He loves the I Survived books and this, that, the other. I'm buying books online all the time for him, a variety of books and so forth. He likes the ones where they survived imminent death and so forth. And I'm like, are the teachers okay with this? I'm going to die any second. There's blood and guts everywhere. But so far, no one's complained.
That's fine. That's fine. I could get into talking to him about that as well. Based on my time in the Marine Corps and my time with the Los Angeles Police Department, and then currently doing parkour, which in 2013.
You're doing parkour?
Yeah, I've been doing parkour for about 11 years now, and here I am.
Oh my gosh, my son loves playing video games about parkour.
Really?
And he plays hundreds of games about parkour with the ground is lava. So if you fall, you'd literally die. And so he loves parkour video games. He reviews them all the time. I'm like, Tiberius is another parkour game. So yes, he should probably be on a show one day because he would have a blast talking about parkour. He just thinks it's hilarious.
He likes challenge.
Now we have no physical skill. We both have the same affliction. We are allergic to manual labor.
Now, so I'm going to visit. I'm going to go back to Orlando. I'm going to visit you, and I'm going to take you both out to doing some basic parkour stuff, and I'm going to make it really, really, really fun, like a game.
He would love that. He would love that.
Yeah, because it is all about play. Parkour is not about like doing the physical fitness stuff, even though you need to be physically fit to be effective in it. And there's foundational stuff because my foundation is a martial arts. I've been doing it since I was 18 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, and I like Sofie. Sofie talks about. I'm a member of a bunch of martial arts Hall of Fame, and I have multiple black belts. I have a 5th degree black belt in Kempo, 9th degree black belt in Goju Ryu, which is Okinawan style. I have a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a senior instructor in Jeet Kune Do, which is Bruce Lee's system, Penjak Salat, Filipino Kali, Japanese. I have
How do you have the time? I worked my way to get. When I was a kid, I wanted to do karate, and the finances weren't there. As an adult, I got my black belt in 2000 in Taekwondo, and then I didn't have time, so I got fat. And how do you have the time?
Yeah, so I find the time to still engage in that and keep myself physically fit. You may have seen some of my pictures and everything like that, correct?
Oh yeah, I've seen some of your stuff. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so
he's Dr. Bob is so disciplined, like, because we have the Laughter Mindset Experience and our MetaChef program and now our NLP. So we work together, and he's really like so structured, and his workout time is always the same. Like, you just know he's probably working out at this time. He's probably eating at this time because he's very, very disciplined in all that.
So his structure works with your creativity, right?
Yes, and don't forget being in the Marines and LAPD. I mean, his mind and his brain is structured so much and disciplined, and that's just the way it's formats and how he operates.
I think it was because of my mother, which she taught me early on. She was my first martial arts teacher, teaching me kendo at 18 months old.
Wow.
And then I lived in Okinawa from age 5 to age 8.
You see, now it sounds a little bit, weird. Oh, he was 18 months. But then look at Tiberius at 2 when you started teaching about computers. When you see that, and then you understand it different, because we saw Tiberius is only 9, but he's been getting all the guidance since he was 2. And that's how it happened with you as well, Dr. Bob, right? So
so that's become the foundation. And because my dad was an engineer, he was actually in the U.S. Army, career Army, but he was also an aerospace engineer as well.
And he put the time in, correct? He made sure to guide you and teach you and put the time in. Okay.
No, my mom did.
Okay, but you had someone who was there and put the time in and guided you, and that's important.
Correct.
And I mean,
correct.
I could sit there and go, okay, it costs too much, it's too much effort. Oh, well, he'll learn from school whatever the teachers teach him. Or I can spend my time enjoying being with my son. And I mean, it is some work. I mean, he gives me a list of things he wants. of things people he wants to interview. I mean, he says he wants to interview Ellen DeGeneres. He wants to interview the President of the United States. He wants to interview Hugh Jackman and Steve Harvey. He gives me a whole list of people he wants to meet. I mean, he wants to meet Dan Rather. He wants to interview Dan Rather to thank him for the questions that he's gotten from Dan Rather, because he watches Dan Rather videos to get good questions to ask his guests. So he says, Dad, I want you to find these people. And I'm like, how am I supposed to do that?
By
but
the way,
recently, yes.
So there's a Udemy course that's taught by Dan Rather.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So recently, Tiberius got to interview the captain of the Jamaican bobsled team,
Ah,
nice.
the one from 1988, and the one they made a movie about, Cool Runnings. People said, how'd you get him? I said, I just taught Tiberius you can shoot for the moon and just call everybody. And I just called him. We make a list and we go through and we try to call people and say, and we talk to every guest. So, do you know anyone who would be a good guest to be on the show that has a different job? I mean, Tiberius wants to find someone who's a garbage man. He wants to find someone who's an insurance adjuster. He wants to find an airline pilot. He wants to find people that he can interview because of their vocation and what they do for fun. He found one guy that sells oil and does viscosity tests. Who thought that'd be interesting? But during the interview, he found out the guy liked fishing. And then they talked about fishing for 20 minutes. So you never know where things are going to run through. And it does take time to get those guests. But I'm teaching Tiberius, it doesn't hurt to shoot for the moon. The worst they can do is say, you know what, not today. And these are lessons kids aren't learning. They're being told if someone says no, it's and that's not how it is. You don't cry afterwards. You just go ask someone else. And you know, it took 400 stations to get 8 to say yes. 400. Don't say, don't cry after the first
persistent.
no.
You're very
Bring me 100 no's in a row and then cry about it. If 100 people in a row say no, then you can get upset.
Yep, exactly. And those people that are watching this right now, and I'm going to suggest that you get in contact with Joe Boy, this guy over here on the other side of Sofie, because not because of the IT stuff. Now, if you need help with computers, yeah, he's available because that's,
oh my
that's
God,
his
he has some
profession.
cool. I mean, I've been to the studio. The way they look, like see through. I mean, he's so real. He's just like he's so talented.
But
sure.
but here's the thing I see about you, Joe Boy. Besides being an IT, besides being a father of Tiberius, you also have that camera presence on you, and on top of that,
he's a character too.
he's a character, very dynamic. So I think you would also be great to talk at tech conferences, things like that, and yeah,
I do have a lot of interesting computer stories and so forth and whatnot. So someone told me I should be a stand-up comedian because I've got hilarious stories of things that happened with a computer that you wouldn't think was wrong until you understand. All of a sudden, click, you go, oh my gosh, So
I think you would be great as a speaker. You know who the highest paid speaker is?
Comedian.
No idea.
No.
Yeah, so the highest paid speaker, keynote speaker. The highest paid keynote speaker,
Zig Ziglar, right?
No, not Zig Ziglar. It's the highest paid keynote speaker at $750,000 per keynote, 45-minute keynote. Is Jerry Seinfeld.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And you know Jerry, right?
An expert in his field, very charismatic. Yeah.
Yes.
Or charismatic.
Yes. So with you, I think you would rock it at tech conferences and things like that, and even other arenas, business speaker and so forth. And I don't know if because I'm throwing that into your head, but you're very dynamic. So anybody that's watching, if you want to bring in this very charismatic speaker, there he is, right over there.
And he is a visionary for sure. I like his outlook and the way he
Yes.
files the information and filters it and then brings it from different angles. I've talked to him a few times, and he's definitely he's a visionary, and I like that guidance of how he sees things, the possibilities, how he is very creative in problem solving, and how he's passing that trait to Tiberius too and others, which is really cool.
Yes.
Well, I think when you look at what's going on in the world, and so much is going on in our world, and if it's the worst thing. No, it's not the worst, because we've always had worse. There's always going to be things. And why don't you look at the positive side of what's good out there? Because our poor people have air conditioning. Our poor people have cell phones. Okay, back then they didn't have that. They didn't have toilets. Okay, so we are so much better off than we ever were before. So we have to look at the positive side of what we have, and our politics and so forth are so polarizing. And I'm like, it's not about red or blue anymore. Instead, look at, here's a problem. Instead of saying what this side says or that side says, how would you solve it?
Mm-hmm.
And if everyone came up with how they solved it, how
Amen.
they think a solution would be, then let's submit that to those people who are actually in charge and can come up with stuff. So when Tiberius watches broadcasters, and he watches the nobility of journalism, I haven't watched Ted Koppel. I haven't watched Dan Rather, the old stuff, because that's when journalism was, here's what is going on, and you make your own decision about what you think about it.
Yep.
Here are the facts, and no one's telling you this side or the other. It's no longer opinion TV and stuff like that we have now. And I think we need to get back to an idea of, it's not that everyone needs to we need to be forced to help people. We want to choose to help people, and choose to help people that we want to help. And you help your inner circle first and get bigger and bigger. And we've lost that. There's either a side that thinks you have to get all the stuff for yourself, and the side thinks you have to give everything away. And there is a happy center, and there's a happy center where you develop your own skills, and then you use some of your extra to help others and teach them, rather than just give them money or give them stuff. Teach them how to develop for themselves.
Yep.
And they don't
The
have to
best
be
gift.
competitors.
The best gift.
You can work together and make it and make more together.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Tiberius is focusing on journalistic standards again, because that was developed by William Randolph Hearst, who wanted to have everybody come together instead of what in the 19th century they had what's called yellow journalism, which is kind of like what we're doing now in social media and all the fake kind of stuff that's been put up. So all the newspapers back in those times didn't have any journalistic standards. So Hearst came and developed that. And finally, we had a standard of journalism, which I think peaked with, like you hear about Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite
Yes.
and all those people. I mean, they were amazing. I grew up with Cronkite and even Murrow. And then later, we had like Dan Rather and some of the other ones that are.
Yes. He really wants to meet Dan Rather, that's for sure, or at least talk to him on Zoom or something.
Oh.
But what's funny is he interviewed a TV personality, Raquel Oza from Channel 9, and she was amazing, and she really
I
loved
know,
Tiberius,
yeah.
and she was so nice. And she says, Joe, Tiberius really needs an outfit. And we sat with him, and we showed him all the old photos of press people, the old school 1950 press people, where they had the top hat and the word pressed out of their hat. And he looked at him, and he picked someone wearing suspenders. You think who wears suspenders?
Yes, and that's his look, and his style is.
And so he picked that style based on someone who is now on TV. He currently grabs his mic and wears his suspenders and has his hat. And so, of course, he's a lot older now, and that's Larry King.
Mhm.
But it was a young Larry King that he saw that photo and says, that's perfect. And that's been his thing. And he's changed his outfit a couple times, but he seems to always go back to those suspenders. And he just has this cool look. And I think not many people take out the time to realize how they present themselves. And one thing that Tiberius has learned, and it's something that I tell people all the time, and because I talk to a lot of people, when I talk to kids about it, I want to make video games. What do you want to make in video games? Do you want to make music? Do you want to make the art? Do you want to make the artificial intelligence, the movement? Because you can't do it all. You have to pick an element and get good at one part of it so that you can be presented to make a game. And so when I look at people and say, how do you want to present your presentation? That's what matters. Because what people think about you, sure, you should not let it bother you what other people think about you. But what people think about you does matter to others, and it's called personification. And so that matters. And he has to learn, even at a young age, that other kids at first didn't believe he even had a show. They thought he was lying.
Yes.
And so what other people think does matter, because it will affect you in how people treat you. And then in return, your response back. And he would come home negative, feeling they don't like me, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you know what, Tiberius? They'll learn. And one day he was on Fox 35 and they believed, because he was literally on the TV screen. And so
I saw that one. He was talking about traffic and guiding them. Oh, that was so cool.
Yes, the school bus, how to park around, how to go around the school bus and drive safely. I remember that one, the first day of school. He does PSA announcements and so forth. And that's the kind of stuff that matters. And he's learning to give back. Recently, he interviewed the head of the Second Harvest Food Bank. And he did a video and he said, you know, you're looking at Title I schools, those kids during COVID are staying at home. Those kids normally would get school lunches. Now they're not getting lunches because they're home. And he goes, what if you opened up your fridge and it was empty? And then you go to the cupboard and it's empty too. Can you help me? And he was able to raise over $3,000 to help kids get food. And Second Harvest Food Bank was able to do that. And he worked with the Rotary Club of Central Florida. And they raised some more funds and they were able to get it all done and help those kids and get things going. He's learning to do that. It's not just what you can do for yourself, but making sure to help those that are close in your area that you can help. You can't save the world. No one's going to save the world. We have to save ourselves. But you can pick areas that you want to work on and do it that way and give of your skills, not just here's a bunch of money.
Yeah. So it seems like he really embodied when JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Well, like he's embodied that.
If you're familiar with Rotary, I'm a Rotary member as well. That's a service over self.
Yeah, I've actually.
And so it's important that you learn to serve. But what's important to me is it's not government mandated.
Yep.
Right. You're choosing to want to serve. You're choosing to give of yourself, and I choose to give mostly of my time and my skill, and so forth. And that's what I'm trying to teach Tiberius.
Priceless.
And that becomes more valuable than just here's a check and let's hopefully someone does something useful with it. I'd rather make sure that they get a value that I know will help them and do something useful rather than just here's a check.
Yeah, I love the aspects of Rotary. I belonged to Rotary years ago when I was running my advertising and marketing firm. Only when I had time, because I was on a board of different nonprofit organizations as well. And we ended up building a school down in Mexico. There, so that was our project that we engaged in, and I love it. You know, service. You know that service aspect, which was really amazing.
That's beautiful. I know we're getting close to the end of our show, but I just wanted to ask Joey Boyd, what is one habit that's really assisted you in your progress and in your career that you can share with our audience?
Well, most people will completely disagree with me. But I play video games at least 30 minutes to an hour a day. And people are like, that's crazy. You shouldn't do that. I'm like, well, believe it or not, I get stress. And playing video games helps me de-stress. And I have been playing video games ever since I was 12 years old. I was a kid. I've loved it. And I think that when people say, oh, video games are horrible and bad, I says, actually, I like to study how people play video games. And I can tell you right now when there's someone playing them wrong and that they're getting wrong information from it and when they're not. And I did start a charity a number of years ago called Soul Games USA, and where, you know, a bunch of kids would come and play video games. And the next time they came, there was a part missing out of the computer. Well, if you want to play, you got to fix the computer. They're like, well, how? Let's just figure it out. And after 10 times, they know how to build a computer.
Wow. And
then my clients, when they bought a computer from me, would give me the old one. These kids would rebuild those computers, and then we would give them away to charities for free. And all we want is a letter saying thank you and that it was going to be used by a child and so forth. And so we're giving away a couple hundred computers a year. So it was an important avenue, is that the kids were learning to build machines because they had a passion and wanted to play games. And so for me, it's a great stress reliever. I haven't seen a lot of the negative stuff that people say, oh, it's going to make people do this, that, and the other. When I see someone acting negatively towards a game, I will inform the parents and say, this is not the type of game for your child, and you should have this looked at. because I'm able to recognize those signs because I've studied video game play for a long time. So as much people as are against that video games is good, for me, that what has helped me stay centered and focused is playing video games at least 30 minutes a day.
Good, because that piggybacks on the work of Dr. Jane Mechanical, where she actually wrote a book about video games and how they can actually help people. And I know that there's a lot of people who are gamers, like Noah Kagan, who's a founder of AppSumo, and he plays video games, and he says video games helped him to build an 8-figure business, and many other people have been engaged in games, and a lot of people don't know about, because I coach like CEOs. A lot of CEOs play video games. Yeah.
And some of them help your creativity. And I know there were some names of games that were recommended because I was researching on that. And some of them are actually very good in helping develop your creative skills and abilities, and also build your anticipation, curiosity, and so forth. So again, it's like, how are you playing and what type of games are you choosing?
Yep.
Well, every once in a while, I tell parents all the time to play games with their kids. They're like, oh, I don't want to learn that game. I'm like, listen, I can show you how to be good enough to surprise your child and to be able to compete with them a little bit. But it's important to play with your kids. So Tiberius and I, we play at least 3 times a week. We'll be playing some games together. And there's some games I can't play with him because he's a kid and so forth. But at the same time, I want to make sure that he gets competitive. Now, the issue is I tell parents all the time, play with your kid. Play video games with your kid. If you don't know the game, learn it. Take some time when he's not there and learn that game. Take the effort, because it's their world now. We're changing. We're a social media world, and whether or not you want to, if you want to make sure you're part of that, you can hide them and tell them to sit in the woods and do all this stuff. Well, when I was a kid, I did this. Well, guess what? The world is getting smaller and smaller and getting closer and closer. And if you let your kid go run out and play, you can get arrested for it now, because that's not allowed. Now, if you live out in Utah, you can, but you certainly can't do it in Orlando. That's enough to get arrested. You're not paying attention to your child. So it's changed. You can't just let the kid run out and do whatever he wants. So you get to be a part of that. And one of the things you can do is, most kids are playing video games, and some like sports and all that, but do it with them and take the time out. And if you don't know how to do it, call me. I'll show you how to play some games, and we'll make it fun. Tiberius, every week on Thursdays, which is today, he sits here, and we get a couple people come into the office, and we play games. My brother will come and sit there, and we'll all play together. And so you got 4 or 5 people playing and blowing each other up and this, that, and the other, and it's a lot of fun. And they get that stress level done. They have that excitement, and then they go on. These are things that I think, how do you put it? It's been demonized by certain industries, and at the same time, people think, oh, it's just kid stuff. But you're getting to spend time with people where it's not eating. Let's face it. You go eat and get fat, or you can exercise together, which not too many people have time to exercise. You can work together, or you can play together. And I took playing and working together seriously. So I play very, very hard, and I work very hard. And both of them I get to share with my son. And I think if one thing people can get from is take your kid to work and play with them. And that's things people miss. You know, when people are on their deathbed, they don't go, oh man, I really wish I worked a couple more days. They always say, I wish I had more time with my kid. And I get to do that now.
Yay. Awesome.
Yes, that is awesome. Yes. And to find the balance and what works, and make it fun while there's growth and creativity, and expanding your mind with that. That's really good. That is great.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And he heard I was going to be with Dr. Sofie Nubani, so that's why he just said, can I please stay up? I want to surprise her.
Oh, wow.
Well, you know, he sure did surprise me, and I give him a big, big hug, and I can't wait to see you guys in person again, of course. It's always a pleasure, and I love watching his stuff, and I actually make time to see things with Tiberius, because the kid is so bright, and he really asks good questions, and he positions, and he brings good information out of his guests. Like, you actually have to guide and lead them, and he really does a great job. He's good at improvising, so if something is off of what's structured, he knows
Right.
how to bounce back.
If the guest answers the next question in the script before he gets to the question, he learns how to adjust.
Yep.
And that's very unique for a kid to be able to do.
Yes.
And a good example would be the head of Second Harvest Food Bank. He sat there and says, Tiberius, I do this all the time. I do interviews all the time. You asked me more questions that made me think than any other interview I've had. And I get asked questions all the time. So I answer the same questions over and over again. And you made me think. I says, that tells me you've got something. I don't know what it is yet, but you've got something.
By the way, Dr. Sofie, what I noticed is that Joe over here, he's really amazing the same way as his son Tiberius, because
Oh, yes.
he's also able to improvise and so forth. I think there's a modeling.
But I told you, didn't I tell you way back
Yep,
when I
you
first
did.
met with them? And I
You
told
did.
you, I
Yep.
said, you got to really connect with Joy Boy, because I really feel there is something in common. And I think it's the way you think about things and the way you, like, that's the part I connected, because I know you and I've talked to him a few times. So I kind of felt that. You know how you just know these two people, if they have a discussion, it's going to be a deeper discussion and it's going to go somewhere. That's why I said, you guys need to really talk.
And we will from now on.
Yes.
I got a funny feeling.
Yep, definitely.
Trust me, I'm waiting for the let's talk about video game show, because I'm sure I'll be called for that.
Yeah, definitely, because I can really get into that. I'm also certified as a gamification expert as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I understand game technology, but also understand the game that's in real life, and then how games themselves can teach people to challenge themselves to level up, to level up, to level up, to level up.
Right.
Because most people will go through life like this instead of leveling up. But when you play games, you're taught to get through this challenge, level up to the next one, go through it, level up, like that. So.
Well, Tiberius is learning about stocks. He asked for his own stock portfolio. I'm like, well, you're 9. They won't let you do that. But we're playing with the Cash App, the Cash App program, and so forth, and learning, make your $10 buys and, sell it when it's a $12 and so forth. And that's still 20%. So I think if you learn to grow slowly and not look for the big win, and practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress.
Yes.
And as long as you look at practice makes progress, you'll get there eventually. Tiberius is not famous. He thinks he is. He wants to be, and he's not. But one day he will be found by someone going, wow, okay, what he's doing is different. We can do something with that. Hopefully I'm able to keep up. But I've changed a lot in what I do and how I do it, because the best job in the world is being a dad.
So you want to be ready when the time
it
comes.
is a job.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I do a good one. I want to make sure that when he looks at his kids, he doesn't go, man, I really wish my dad had been there for me. I want him to go, you know what? My dad did this and this and this, and I want to show you that and do more. And that's the whole thing, is let it be just a little bit more each time. And if everyone does that, life will be a lot better for everybody.
You just answered the question. We're going to ask you, what are some tips you would leave to our audience? You just read our minds.
You just answered it. I think that's perfect. I think
I know.
people who are looking to becoming a parent can look at this and learn to.
There's a static.
There is a static on his line, but I can understand. Yes. The interesting question on new parents is, I tell them, first off, we're in a digital age, so get them used to the computer early. Tiberius he touched an iPad at 6 months old. They're like, that's crazy. You're going to ruin him if you do that. I says, no, he learned motor skills and so forth very young. And because of that, he was never afraid of technology. And there's a lot of people, even young people, that, oh, I can't mess with it. He's not afraid of it at all. And he knows what good stuff is and what bad stuff is. If he hears a bad word and this and the other, ooh, Dad wouldn't like that. And he'll immediately turn it off and change it. So he's learning those skills that a lot of people just said it's all or nothing. There's always going to be bad things on the internet. So teach them there's bad things and what to do when they find it, instead of saying that was bad and you're grounded and you can't ever see it again. You know, if you want to look at something that might be off color, not a problem. Let's look at it with me and see how you react to it. And then we can talk about it and discuss it. Having open communication is, to me, very important. So for new parents, don't hide them from technology. Let it be in front of them and enjoy the ride. It's very, very short. Okay, 18 years is 18 years. And if you're lucky, maybe they'll want to stick around and help you.
Fantastic. That was great. And I'm looking forward to your third book on parenting. And yeah, definitely.
You just got yourself into one more
I
thing.
haven't written anything.
5 more minutes. We don't know what else we might be make you suggest to do.
No, this has been a great show, and I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on and talking to you and getting
Likewise,
to meet you.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's just been amazing, and
thank you for your time,
Yeah.
and thank you for sharing with us, and what a beautiful surprise you had. And this is going to be recorded in our history memory, especially that Tiberius said it was his first show. So when I'm 70 years old and he's famous everywhere, I'm like, Tiberius, remember
Yes.
you were at the Meet the Expert show for the first time. So that would be cool.
Well, it was pleasure being on your show. And if you ever, want to chat and so forth, by all means, I'll be more than happy to.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Sophie, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Blessings.
It was good meeting you, Bob, Dr. Bob. And, life is good. And if we look at the positive about it, instead of all the negative out there, you'd never be surprised of what you can achieve.
Yes,
Right.
and I'm sure that you've taught everybody here, including me and Dr. Sophie, and your insights on parenting and life in general. And if anybody wanted to get a hold of you, whether it's even parenting advice, but also IT and so forth, what would be the best
Or
way?
even because he also has a studio in town, and they monitor shows and stuff like that.
Right. I did actually buy a radio station. It's a web station. You remember back in the 80s, there was a station called WJHM 102 Jams here in Orlando? Well, it is now a web-based station, and we bought that for Tiberius to be on. And that way his show will never, ever get canceled. But
Yes.
I can be reached at yourcomputersolutions.com or at the Tiberius show. I think that logo's above me. For Tiberius, I can always be reached. The name is Joe Boy. There's not too many of them out there. So look on the internet, find Joe Boy, you'll find me. Joseph Boy for some places. It's usually someone trying to sell me something. But I'm very easy to find on Facebook and so forth.
Fantastic. Yeah,
That is awesome. Thank
this
you
has been
so
a lot of fun.
much.
Yeah,
And
thank
thank
you.
you
Thank you so
everyone
much
for
for
watching as well.
Yes. Bye,
It was my
everybody.
pleasure. Thank you.
Blessings, blessings, blessings.